Now, passion is the biggest driving force in sports, we know it. It is the main ingredient in every narrative, particularly rivalries. This Cricket World Cup has stitched yet another chapter in the India-Australia rivalry, which made me think about how and why this rivalry has overtaken that of the India-Pakistan contest. The rivalry with Pakistan stems from, of course, our shared political history and the baggage of the past, but what about the one with Australia? The obvious and more superficial answer to that would be just the stardom and talent on both sides. A riveting contest between bat and ball can always spur rivalries. But that's just not it. Shane Warne versus Sachin Tendulkar, for example, turned into one of the warmest friendships in years to come. Here's what I think. It's just the Aussie way that can get under the skin of any opponent, in this case, India. Australia is known for its mental toughness. They are a side that sledges, taunts and pokes opponents. Play mind games to get under their skin. Their unsaid underlying motto is win at any cost.
Yeah, generally Australian teams are very passionate about playing for Australia. Like most countries, prepare very well for every single game. Very competitive teams. You know, we love to win. You know, that's part of our sort of DNA. And then yeah, just sort of always seem to have a great camaraderie around the group as well. Everyone seems to get on really well. And are moving in the same direction. So I certainly see a lot of those traits in this current team as well.
Now, just like West Indies were a massive force in cricket in the 70s and the 80s, Australia rose to supremacy in the 90s and early 2000s and continued that legacy that they've created. And every captain had that steely swagger and that sharp-tongued demeanour about them. They never minced words while engaging in a contest. You always think twice before you taunt an opponent because there is always a chance that it will backfire. Aussies do not think that way. They know and believe that it won't, and it'll pay off. They are brash, in your face, and never hold it back. And they follow it up and follow up the words or the threat with action, whether it was Steve Waugh or Michael Clarke, Ricky Ponting or even Pat Cummins. When Herschel Gibbs, for example, dropped that catch off Steve Waugh at the World Cup, Waugh said, "You've dropped the World Cup," and proceeded to demonstrate just that. Here's what Pat Cummins says at a pre-match press conference right before the World Cup final.
Yeah, I think you've got to embrace it. You know, the crowd's obviously going to be very one-sided. But in sport, there's nothing more satisfying than hearing a big crowd go silent. And that's the aim for us tomorrow. You've just got to embrace every part of a final. You know, in the lead-up, there's going to be noise and more people and interest. And you just can't get overwhelmed. You got to pay up for it. You got to love it. And just, you know, whatever happens, it's fine. But you just got to finish a day with no regrets.
And goes ahead and manages to do just that. There's a reason former India skipper MS Dhoni had said in a dressing room that the way to counter the Aussie attitude was by getting under their skin and playing on their ego.
I remember once, just before the 2015 World Cup semi-final, I remember Talat Dhoni once telling the team in one of those talks that when you play against the Aussies, you have to play against their ego. You have to make them play on their ego. That is something which we spoke about.
Wise words, as that is what Aussies love to do. So maybe the best medicine is to give back what you exactly get. But it isn't just about the fierce war of words, the intensity, and following that up with their great skill and performances on the field. They are the neighborhood thug. They will steal the candy from the kid and smile right back afterwards. This picture of Mitch Marsh posing with his feet propped up on the World Cup trophy went viral. They were understandably over the moon with the victory, but that picture didn't go down too well with the Indian fans. He was trolled and abused for his arrogant display of having won a World Cup. And it is in the nature of Marsh and many other Aussie male cricketers to make bold and seemingly foot-in-the-mouth statements like this one before the World Cup.
Australia will stay undefeated, defeating India in the final. Australia 452-2 in the final, India all out at 65.
The only difference is that they actually did that. So it isn't an empty, bland joke now because they actually executed it. They won the World Cup and beat India too. Probably not quite in the manner Marsh said they would. But it is this rogue, seemingly rowdy attitude that possibly always irks Indian fans. The players, a little bit, but more so the fans. You always like a humble winner, especially when they've beaten you. It's probably in your nature, in the psyche. So winners who flaunt it more just don't sit all too well. And Australia can seem to be that high school bully when it comes to displaying aggression on the field or even while celebrating a win afterwards. We all remember this. It was the Champions Trophy win in India and it hurt. But just watch how Ricky Ponting irreverently indicates the then BCCI President Sharad Pawar to stop the fuss and just hand over the trophy. Damon Martin goes ahead and gently shoves him off the dais and the Aussies go and celebrate the win. Now, the IPL has meant some bonds between players of the two countries, but some come national duty and the stars and the stares and glares will be back. Like when India and Australia play each other again in a T20 series starting 23rd of this month. For fans, revenge will definitely be on the cards, even though the players and the teams themselves will be different because Indian fans just don't like seeing an Aussie team beat their own side. And while that is a fair emotion to feel and in that it's okay to feel disgruntled by this, maybe it would be good to not turn it into hatred of any kind. Because after all, in sport, if one wins, the other has to lose. Aussies love to incite this feeling in the opposition, so it would be good to try to counter it instead of feeling the hatred.